Oh, hey leaders. This week's big idea is by faith, I bring my best. Let's say that together. By faith, I bring my best. Now we are in the middle of a review with Saints. We spent so much time in December and part of November getting ready for our Christmas play that we're actually doing a review of Saints right now so that the kids can remember the story. So we're going back to week 17 where we learned about the story of Nehemiah. Now remember, all of this is a parable. What is a parable? A parable is a story that ties to the Bible to bring it a deeper meaning. Now, obviously, the episodes we watch are not about Nehemiah, but what they are is they are a parable that ties back to the story of Nehemiah. So we're going to learn this week about Nehemiah bringing his best in a very overwhelming situation. Have any of you ever been in an overwhelming situation where it would be really easy to do a job halfway or to get halfway finished and then just give up because it was too hard? Now, Nehemiah lived in a town called Babylon. Now, Babylon, he got messengers coming to him and saying, hurry, the wall has been torn down in your city, in the city you're from. He went to the city and he said, you know what, listen, we're going to rebuild. We're going to rebuild the city. Well, the people that were against Nehemiah were furious. It actually says in Nehemiah 2, it says when Sanballat, Tobiah, and the Arabs, Ammonites, Ashdodites, heard that the work was going ahead and that the gaps in the wall of Jerusalem were being repaired, they were furious. They made all the plans to come out and fight against Jerusalem and throw us into confusion. Now, doesn't that sound like our lives sometimes? We can be in something that we feel like God has called us to, and there are people in our lives that just don't like it. They don't like that we are making a plan, that even though things look like they are in ruins, that we're making a plan to help rebuild. But it goes on in Nehemiah 4, but we prayed to our God and guarded the city day and night to protect ourselves. Then the people of Judah began to complain. The workers are getting tired. There is so much rubble to be moved. We will never be able to build the wall by ourselves. Meanwhile, our enemies were saying, before they know what's happening, we will swoop down on them and kill them and end their work. I've heard this phrase, mid-project regret syndrome. Have you guys ever experienced that? Where you're like, okay, I'm gonna clean out this room, or I'm gonna clean out my garage, because it's in just terrible straits. And so you're like, you set aside a Saturday, about an hour in, you look at yourself and you're like, I am worse off right now than I was when I started, and there's stuff everywhere. And that's kind of where these people were. They were in the middle of rebuilding the wall, but it was taking a lot longer than they thought. All projects do, right? And so taking a lot longer than they thought, a lot harder than they thought. And so they're just like, never mind, we don't want to do this, but they're already halfway through. And so then all of the enemies were feeling very good about this because they wanted them to quit early, okay? But Nehemiah wasn't that way. Nehemiah, he refused to give up. He refused to do a job halfway. He was going to bring his best to the situation. So in verse 13 and 14, so I placed armed guards behind the lowest parts of the wall in the exposed areas. I stationed the people to stand guard by families, armed with swords, spears, and bows. Then as I looked over the situation, I called together the nobles and the rest of the people and said to them, don't be afraid of the enemy. Remember, the Lord who is great and glorious, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes. So he turned everything back to that. So this week, as we prep our hearts to teach this to our kids, I want you to look in your own life and say, what areas in my life could I bring my best? So right now I'm bringing about a 50, 60, 70, 80, 90%. What areas could I bring my very best? What areas has God called me to that I know he's called me to do that I am not really doing what I know I could be doing because of XYZ, because of whatever excuses that you come up with? It's really easy because we all have things. We're all busy. We're all tired. We all have things in our lives that maybe we could cut out, but we don't want to cut out, or are okay to do, but they're not the things that God has really called us to. So I really encourage you this week, look and see what areas of your life can you bring your best, like Nehemiah when he was called to rebuild the wall. Because my guess is there are things in your life that God has called you to build, that as God has called you to rebuild, that he is going to make a way for. So I will see you, speaking of best, I will see you. Try to be on time, 9:15 with your t-shirts on this Sunday. Let's give him heaven. Can't wait to see you.